And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
I'll see if I can make this review without any references to Disney at all. But today we're talking about Small World, which is the latest Days of Wonder game. Now, Small World is designed by the same designer of Vinci, and if you compare the games, you're going to find a lot of similarities about them. However, I'm not going to talk about that very much in this, only to say that Small World is a more refined, maybe somewhat simplified, but much more thematic version of Vinci. And because of that, Vinci is about conquering the world of the western of Europe, basically near the Mediterranean Ocean and such. And the theme just isn't there for me. So Vinci is gone. Now we have Small World. But for most of you, that doesn't really matter because most of you haven't played Vinci. It's a 10-year-old game. So let's talk about what Small World brings to the table. And here we can see all the components that come with the game. As you can see, there's two boards, and each board is double-sided so that you have one board for 2 players, one for 3 players, one for 4, and one for 5. There's plenty of components for money, for fortresses, for different parts of the game. And you can see a really nice component tray there, which all the different counters fit in. And it's pretty good, except for the fact that when the counters fall over, sometimes it's a real pain to dig them out with your fingers. But still, everything fits very nicely in the box, and it looks really good. Here's a close-up of the 5-player board, and this shows you what the game looks like at the beginning. As you can see, there are many different regions across the board. There are sea regions and pastures and mountains, which have a mountain token placed on them. And across the board are scattered several of this basically neutral unit, which is a lost civilization that no one cares about because you are going to be destroying them. The theme of Small World is basically that the world is too small for everybody, and so you're going to have to fight the others to get them off it. So I guess in some sort of way, it's basically a war game. This is really the heart of the game right here. At the side of the table, randomly each game, you're going to be putting different races along with different characteristics of those races, and they're randomly matched up. And you're going to basically have different things each time. So for example, here we have wealthy skeletons, mounted giants, I don't know what they're riding, underworld ratmen, heroic tritons, forest humans, and berserk elves. But of course you can see next time I might have forest elves and berserk humans, or heroic skeletons and mounted ratmen and underworld giants. So it's, that's interesting in how those fit together. But these are important because if you see, for example, let's look at the heroic tritons right here. There's 2 numbers here. There's a 5 and a 6. If this is the race that I decide to take, to use, to conquer as much of the world as I can with it, those 2 numbers I'll add together, and that's how many units I will have to conquer the world with, 11. So you can see here that the Underworld Ratmen will give me 13, while the Berserk Dwelves are only going to give me 10, and the Forest Humans only 9. So that will have something to do with which one you pick. But even more than that, each race has a specific bonus. For example, Giants, when they're attacking next to a mountain, have to use 1 less unit. Skeletons, every time they kill 2 units in different territories, they get another skeleton. Elves always run away. They don't get killed when they're conquered. And then when you combine that with the characteristic, for example here, heroic gives you 2 heroes to use in battles. Mounted means 1 less when you're in the plains. Wealthy just gives you 7 straight points for picking them. Now some combinations are going to be better than others. And so when it's your turn, at the beginning of the game, you're going to be picking one of these races. Now you're supposed to take the top one. So I'm supposed to take wealthy skeletons here, which I actually would take at the beginning of the game. But let's say I didn't want to take wealthy skeletons or mounted giants or underworld ratmen, but I really wanted the heroic tritons. To do that, I would have to put a victory point on each of the races above the heroic tritons so that I can take them, they move up, and then we bring in someone new, which happens to be the merchant wizards. And so eventually, those races are going to be more and more attractive to other people because there's victory points on them. But I have my heroic tritons, now I can take them and go and conquer with them. So I decide to attack with my heroic tritons here. I have 11 tokens that I can attack with, and I keep them all in my hand to start out the game with. I'm going to be attacking from one of the outside regions on the board. And so to take over a region, I need to put 2 units in it. However,
The Triton special ability is that when they're attacking a region next to a coastline, they need one less. So I only need to put one in there to conquer it. Now, if I want to conquer this lost civilization token here, though, I need to put in one more than normal. So I need to put in 2, and then add one more, 3, to get rid of this lost civilization. Same thing if I wanted to go into the mountains here. I would have to put in 2 plus 1 because there's a mountain token here. But then again, it's next to a coast, so that would be -1. So only 2 there. And then I could take this loss out for 3. Or actually only 2 because it's next to a coast. And then this one's next to a coast, so that would be 1. And then 1 here. Now I only have 1 token left. And I want to conquer this area here. But I'm going to need 3 for that. 2 to conquer the area, plus 1 for that. So for your very last conquest each turn, you're allowed to roll this die, which has 3 blank sides, a 1, 2, and a 3. So I roll the die, I get a blank, nothing happens. But let's say I had rolled a 3, I could have conquered that civilization acting as if I had 4 there. And that's the end of my turn. This is the Heroic Titans, so I have 2 hero tokens that I can put in different spaces to show that those spaces are immune to enemy attacks. And that's a good bonus to have. And then I'll count however many territories I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I will take 7 points from the bank. And that's the end of my turn. Now, after everyone else goes, and they might attack me and so on and so forth, at my next turn, I have 2 choices. One of them is to use the Tritons again. To do that, I would take back all but 1 of each Triton in my territories, and I could even take back other Tritons if I wanted to, and then attack with these Tritons again, taking over more territories if possible, and getting more points. I don't even have to attack. I can just say, I'm going to take points for the territories that I have. There's going to come a time, though, when after I've been attacked by other people enough, or I'm just getting tired of using them, or I just don't see a whole lot more I can do with them, then I'm going to get tired of the Heroic Tritons. So on my turn, instead of attacking with them again, I can put them into decline. I turn over their markers like this to show that they are now in decline, which for the most part, with the exception of a few special abilities and a few races, most part means they lose all their special abilities. When I look at the board, their pieces will be turned over to show that they're in decline. They will still get 1 point for me for every area I control them, but next turn, and that's your whole turn putting a race in decline, but next turn I might decide to take someone powerful again, and the Merchant Wizards I might pick on my next turn to go around and conquer people again, and then, so I'll have 1 active race and 1 race in decline. And if I decline my active race and I have another race in decline, then that race disappears, and you keep going on and fighting and fighting and fighting. Let me tell you why I enjoy this game. 1, there's a lot of variety. I enjoy the fact that you might have mounted giants one time, you might have fortress giants the next time, fortified giants, you might have wealthy giants, and that keeps things interesting because each game I play, I'm playing with something different. And if I got tired of one race halfway through a game, I'm going to put it in decline and try another race. And in fact, over the course of the game, you'll probably have 3, maybe even 4 different races that you control. A lot of fun. It's a timed game. There's a certain amount of turns, and whoever has the most points is the winner. I also like the game because of its simplicity. While there's some back and forth on what special abilities, Days of Wonder has included some sheets that explain all the abilities, and there's very little question about how they work together. My 9-year-old daughter plays it simply. I found that the 2-player game is just as much fun. Well, maybe not as much fun, but a lot of fun. Possibly the 5-player game is still my favorite way to play. And it really does feel like a small world, a shrinking world where everyone's fighting back and forth. And it's one of the few, I guess, war games that I can get people who aren't interested in a war game to play. Because it's very simple. Put forces down, attack, spread out, eventually start another race, and continue and do the same. It plays very quickly. 90 minutes is maximum, but I think you can get most games done in an hour. I have to give high recommendation to Small World.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.